Hi everyone, my name is Brittany from Group 6, and today we will be talking about cancer and the lifestyle, more specifically the effects that diet, obesity, and stress have on it. Before we get started, I want to dive into specific lifestyle factors. I want to start by talking about what cancer is, how it develops, and how it's influenced by the environment and other lifestyle factors. So first, we'll start off with an introduction. According to the CDC, cancer is the second leading cause of death in the United States. It affects millions of people each year. But what exactly is cancer? Cancer is a disease where cells in the body begin to grow uncontrollably. Normally, cells grow, divide, and die in a controlled way. But in this case, in cancer, this regulation breaks down. The abnormal cells continue to divide, forming a mass called a tumor, and in some cases these cells can spread to other parts of the body, a process known as metastasis. This happens because the genetic mutations, which are changes in the DNA that affect key genes, two major types of genes are involved, which are oncogenes, which push cells to divide, and the tumor suppressor genes, which normally stop uncontrolled growth. When these genes are damaged, the balance between each is lost. Mutations can be inherited, but more often they are acquired through lifestyle or environmental exposures. These are using tobacco, having a poor diet, obesity, and other chronic stress. So while genetics play a pretty big role, our daily choices can strongly influence whether cancer develops or not. So understanding this helps us to see how prevention isn't just possible, it's definitely necessary. So now we'll get into how exactly cancer develops. Cancer obviously doesn't happen overnight. It's not a single event, but it's rather a slow, complex process that takes place over a long period of time. Scientists have identified three main stages in the development of cancer, which are initiation, promotion, and progression. Each of these phases play a crucial role in the transformation of a normal, healthy cell into a potentially deadly one. So the first stage is called initiation. This is where the initial damage occurs, which is typically a mutation or an alteration in a cell's DNA. This damage can happen spontaneously, but more often it's caused by exposure to external factors known as carcinogens. Carcinogens are things like tobacco smoke, UV radiation from the sun, certain chemicals in processed foods, alcohols, air pollutants, and even some viral infections like HIV. These agents cause changes in the genes that control cell growth and division, particularly oncogenes and tumor suppressor genes. During initiation, the DNA is damaged, is permanent, but the cell doesn't start multiplying abnormally just yet. It's like flipping a dangerous switch, setting the stage for future development if the conditions are right. And the second stage is known as promotion. This is when the initiated cell that's now genetically altered starts to multiply and expand. Unlike initiation, which involves irreversible DNA damage, promotion is influenced heavily by external lifestyle factors and is considered reversible. Promoters don't directly damage DNA, but they encourage these abnormal cell growth. These promoters include things like high-fat diet, excessive calorie intake, obesity, chronic inflammation, and even long-term exposure to stress hormones. During this stage, the altered cells are not yet cancerous, but they are proliferating, essentially building a small population of precancerous cells. If lifestyle changes are made during this phase, like improving diet, reducing inflammation, or maintaining a healthy weight, it is possible to slow or even halt the process before it can progress any further. And then the final stage is progression. This is when the abnormal cells undergo further genetic changes and become more aggressive. At this point, the cells have formed a tumor that begins to invade nearby tissues. And over time, the cancerous cells may break away from the original site and travel through the blood or lymphatic system to other parts of the body, a process called metastasis. Once metastasis occurs, cancer becomes much more challenging to treat and often requires aggressive therapies like chemotherapy, radiation, or even surgery. This stage is usually irreversible, which is why preventing or delaying the first two stages is so important. Making healthy lifestyle choices early on, such as avoiding carcinogens, maintaining a balanced diet, staying physically active, and managing stress can significantly reduce the risk of cancer, even reaching the progression phase. Now, let's talk a little bit about cancer and the environment. So, when we think about what causes cancer, it's easy to focus on just genetics, but research has shown that environmental factors and lifestyle factors have a pretty big role, often even bigger than inherited risks. These include things that we're exposed to in our daily lives, such as our diet, our exercising habits, our levels of stress, what chemicals we're exposed to, and even some microorganisms. So, according to the World Health Organization, up to 50% of all cancer cases worldwide are preventable simply by modifying or avoiding known risks. That's a powerful statistic. It means that prevention is within reach by a lot of people just by making smarter daily lifestyle choices. So let's start off with a pretty big one, which is diet, which is one of the most influential lifestyle factors. Diets high in ultra processed foods, added sugars, red and processed meats, and saturated fats have been associated with increased inflammation, insulin resistance, and oxidative stress, which all create a biological environment that support cancer development. Processed meats, for example, contain nitrites and nitrates, which can form carcinogenic compounds in the body. Excess sugars contribute to insulin spikes and obesity, further increasing risk. In contrast, a diet rich in whole plant-based foods such as leafy greens, berries, nuts, legumes, and whole grains can help reduce cancer risks. These foods are high in antioxidants like vitamin C and E, which help neutralize free radicals that damage DNA. They also provide a lot of helpful nutrients that inhibit growth of tumors. Now let's talk about obesity. Excess body fat isn't just stored energy, it's metabolically active and can produce inflammatory substances called cytokines. These keep the body in a chronic state of low-grade inflammation, which can lead to DNA damage and disrupt the normal cell signaling. Obesity also has effects on hormone levels, which particularly insulin and estrogen, which high insulin levels promote cell growth and inhibit cell death, while excess estrogen, often produced by fat tissues, has been linked to hormone-sensitive cancers such as breast and endometrial cancer. Visceral fat, which is fat stored around the organs, is especially dangerous. It increases the risk for several types of cancers, including colon, pancreatic, and kidney cancer. Maintaining a healthy weight through balanced nutrition and regular physical activity can dramatically lower these risks. Finally, let's discuss stress. While stress alone doesn't directly cause cancer, chronic unrelieved stress has powerful effects on the body that can contribute to cancer risk indirectly. Prolonged stress activates HPA, leading to releases of cortisol in the body, which is the body's main stress hormone. Chronically elevated cortisol can suppress the immune system, making it harder for the body to detect and destroy abnormal cells before they can develop into tumors. It can also create hormonal imbalances that affect inflammation and cellular repair processes. But more importantly, people under stress may turn to unhealthy coping mechanisms such as smoking, excessive alcohol use, a poor diet, and sedentary behavior, which are all established as risk factors for cancer. Engaging in stress-reducing practices such as exercise, meditation, social connections, therapy, and adequate sleep can improve overall well-being and potentially lower cancer risks by supporting healthy immune and hormonal functions. To sum up, while we can't change our genetics, we do have significant control over many environmental and lifestyle factors that influence cancer development. A nutrient-rich diet, maintaining a healthy weight, and managing stress aren't just good for general health, they are essential components of cancer prevention. Making these choices constantly can reduce your risk and improve your overall quality of time.
Hi everyone, I'll be discussing how nutrition affects cancer risk as part of my project. We'll discuss which food kinds are associated with a higher or reduced risk of cancer, what's going on at the most molecular level within the body, and most importantly, what's the most recent peer-reviewed research has to say about it all. First, let's talk about foods that increase the risk of cancer. Red and processed meats are among the most well-established dietary risk factors for cancer, especially colon cancer. Hot dogs, sausage, bacon, and deli meats are examples of processed meats. Beef, lamb, and pork are examples of red meats. Processed meat is categorized by the WHO as a Group 1 carcinogen, which indicates that there is substantial proof that it causes cancer in people. Since red meat is classified as Group 2A, it is most likely carcinogenic. A meta-analysis by Chan et al. 2011 that was published in PLOS One is among the biggest and best-known research on this subject. Those who consumed the most processed meat had a considerably higher risk of colorectal cancer than those who consumed the least, according to an assessment of data from many prospective trials. Chemicals like nitrosamines, which are produced when these meats are stored or cooked at high temperatures, are the cause. As agents that damage DNA, nitrosamines have the ability to alter our cells' genetic material, which is a crucial stage in the formation of cancer. Let's now discuss sugar. Although sugar does not directly cause cancer, consuming large amounts of it can result in obesity, insulin resistance, and chronic inflammation, all of which are associated with an increased risk of developing cancer. According to a 2023 review by Rip and Angelopoulos in the journal Nutrients, too much sugar in the diet, particularly from sugar-filled drinks and highly processed meals, triggers inflammatory processes and fosters a biological milieu that makes tumors more likely to proliferate. A 2023 BMJ article that conducted an umbrella review of 73 meta-analyses discovered strong negative correlations between added sugar and 7 cancer forms, including pancreatic and breast cancer. These findings highlight the indirect but significant impact sugar has on our immune system and metabolism. What about diet's protective effects? First, let's discuss fiber. Dietary fiber, found in whole grains, fruits, vegetables, and legumes, is essential for reducing the risk of cancer, particularly in the digestive system. According to a 2011 meta-analysis by Aoun et al. That was published in the BMJ, a person's risk of colorectal cancer decreased by almost 10% with every 10 grams of fiber they consume daily. That makes a really big difference. Using food diaries, Murphy et al. 2010 conducted another case-control research that was published in the Journal of the National Cancer Institute, also known as JNCI. They discovered that those who consumed more fiber had a much decreased risk of colon cancer. Fiber works so well because it expedites the passage of food through the digestive tract, minimizing the amount of time potentially hazardous compounds are in touch with the intestinal lining. Additionally, fiber promotes a better gut microbiota, which boosts immunity and reduces inflammation. Let's move on to discuss antioxidants, which are substances present in fruits and vegetables. These consist of beta-carotene, flavonoids, and vitamin C and E. Free radicals are unstable chemicals that can harm cells and cause mutations that lead to cancer. Antioxidants help prevent cancer by neutralizing these molecules. According to an analysis published in Cancer Epidemiology, Biomarkers and Prevention, diets high in foods high in antioxidants are linked to a decreased incidence of malignancies of the digestive tract, prostate, and lungs. The antioxidant information sheet from the National Cancer Institute is another helpful resource. They describe how antioxidants' capacity to lessen oxidative stress in the body makes them associated with preventing cancer when ingested through whole meals as opposed to supplements. What is going on at the molecular level, then, to account for all of this? We must comprehend three primary biological processes: inflammation, metabolic alterations, and oxidative stress. First, let's talk about oxidative stress. This happens when the body produces insufficient antioxidants and an excessive number of free radicals. Although free radicals are a natural part of metabolism, they can harm vital components like DNA if they are not counterbalanced by antioxidants. This damage to the DNA can eventually result in mutations and cancer. This equilibrium may be restored, and cell damage can be avoided with diets high in fruits and vegetables that contain antioxidants. Chronic inflammation comes next. Inflammation is often the body's reaction to an illness or damage. However, if it persists for a long time, because of stress, poor nutrition, or obesity, it may even encourage the growth of cancer. Tumor growth, resistance to therapy, and even metastases to other bodily areas can all be facilitated by inflammatory chemicals. While fiber and plant-based diets aid to lower inflammation, sugar, processed foods, and red meats tend to increase it. Let's wrap up by discussing metabolic alterations, especially those related to insulin resistance. Diets heavy in fat and sugar might have the body less able to react to insulin. Insulin and insulin-like growth factors 1, IGF-1, levels in the blood rise as a result. IGF-1 stimulates cell division and proliferation, including the development of potentially malignant cells. Patel et al.'s 2023 study, which is published in Nutrients, describes how these metabolic alterations serve as fuel for the growth of tumors. Finally, here's the overall picture. Consuming a lot of red meat, processed meat, and added sugars can increase your chance of developing cancer by causing inflammation, destroying DNA, and interfering with your metabolism. However, you can protect your body, lower oxidative stress, maintain a healthy immune system, and encourage natural cell repair by eating a diet high in fiber, antioxidants, and whole plant-based foods. Understanding the profound molecular effects of the food we eat on our body is more important than maintaining a flawless diet. The good news is that over time, even minor adjustments like replacing packaged snacks with fruits or increasing the number of veggies and healthy grains in your meals may have a significant impact. I appreciate your listening.
Hi, my name is Jimena Peña. I am doing the section 3, obesity and cancer. Obesity and cancer remain the conditions with the lowest patient outcomes in the U.S. and abroad. There is sufficient evidence showing that obesity is the major risk factor for cancer, influencing its both development and prognosis. The World Health Organization estimates that the obesity accounts for significant portions of cancer globally, it being the higher developed countries like the United States. There has been comprehensive analysis examining 116 data sets from 43 articles and found that the metabolic syndrome was associated with increased risk for various cancers. There has been further analysis by the US CDC and have linked obesity to be at least 13 types of cancer, that's including the breast, colorectal, pancreatic, and liver cancer. Moreover, the examination of the patient recovery trends suggest that obese cancer patients often have poorer outcomes, including higher recurrence rates and increased treatment resistance, which leads to lower survival rates. We have here a poster from the American Institute of Cancer Research, and it's about what you should need to know about obesity and cancer, how to be at a healthy weight. This could also include the hormonal changes that obesity often causes increased levels of insulin and estrogen, which both lead to cancer growth. You will see here that the main key is to try to be at a healthy weight, but even losing a small amount of weight, about 5 to 10% of your body weight, can reduce cancer risk. Limiting alcohol is another key factor, as drinking alcohol does contribute with the weight gain. Limiting that will also limit your risk factor from the obesity and cancer. In this next slide, the main mechanism linking obesity and cancer include the chronic inflammation, hormonal changes, and metabolic syndrome. There has been found that chronic inflammation in adipose tissue and significant risk factors for developing insulin resistance in type 2 diabetes in obese individuals. Moreover, obesity induces low-grade chronic inflammation, leading to elevated levels in inflammatory cytokines and interleukin, which promotes the DNA damage and tumor progressive. Hormonal changes due to obesity have been proven to cause insulin resistance, leading to hyperinsulinemia. According to the Johansons, there are positive relationships between abnormal glucose metabolism and risk of pancreatic cancer, with Z-score of glucose being R 1.98, 1.41 through 2.76. Estrogen, especially in the postmenopausal woman, is primarily produced to the adipose tissues. However, excess estrogen stimulates the growth of hormone-sensitive cancers such as breast and endometrial cancer. We have here another chart explaining the obesity, the hormone estrogen, and the inflammatory that has been caused, and as well for the fibrosis. In this last slide that I'm going to present, studies has also shown that the metabolic syndrome, which combination of obesity and hypertension, this lipid and insulin resistance significantly raises cancer risk. ESPO, etc., which is an article, did a meta-analysis of 116 studies and found that individuals with metabolic syndrome has 1.58 times increased risk of pancreatic cancer and a 1.34 time higher risk of colorectal cancer compared to normal patients. Therefore, metabolic activity should be closely monitored to reduce the risk of cancer. The analysis confirmed that obesity is a primarily modifiable risk factor of cancer, especially since it influences the presence of insulin in the body. Preventative care methods such as weight loss programs can significantly lower the cancer risk of improved patient outcomes. We have a chart here saying physical activities guidelines. A little bit of this physical activities can help reduce this risk factor, such as 30 minutes or more of physical activities like running daily, walking daily, a jog daily. Muscle and bone strengthening exercises like push-ups daily or at least 3 times per week. For adults should be avoid inactivity. For some, physical activity is better than none. Like we said, that the whole point is for you not to be in home or just be inactive. A walk a mile a day is better than nothing, even if it's as little as a mile. At least 150 minutes per week of moderate intensity activities like brisk walk, or 75 minutes of vigorous intense activities like running in a week. Moderate or high intensity muscle strengthening activities 2 or more days per the week. Now in our generations, we have noticed that we spend more times sitting down, not much as activity as before and back in the days, which is why statistically we have proven to have more risk factors. But as we try to do the exercise throughout our whole day instead of just in the morning and then sit all day and later, it's still as a risk factor. So the whole point is so we could continue to be active throughout the day to be at least in the safe side from having obesity and cancer. For more specific populations here, we have older adults Those who are pregnant and those who are in disability should consult their physicians and modify guidelines. So if you have a disability or if you're pregnant, we may need to lower that intensity, but there is still possibilities of how to be avoiding to be obese and have those cancer prevention. The cancer survivors should consult with their physicians to follow modified guidelines adapt for their specific cancer and treatments. So once you are a survivor for cancer, it is good to always have a little checkup, and then also just try to stay active throughout that survival and your continuation of your lifestyle.
Hello, my name is Marcos, and today we will be talking about stress and cancer. And a quick conclusion. Chronic stress has been connected to an increased risk of cancer throughout various biological pathways. When a person experiences prolonged stress, the body continuously releases stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. These hormones, while essential in short bursts, can have a negative effect when they remain elevated for long periods. They can impair the immune system ability to identify and destroy abnormal cells, which could potentially become cancerous. Chronic stress also causes increased inflammation throughout the body, which can damage cells and tissues, creating an environment that supports cancer development. In addition, the long-term release of stress hormones can lead to biological changes within cells, increasing the likelihood of mutations that may occur to cancer. Moreover, chronic stress is often linked to unhealthy behaviors such as poor eating habits, smoking, and lack of physical activity. These behaviors, which are common response to stress, are themselves risk factors for various types of cancer. For instance, stress may lead to overeating, particularly of unhealthy foods like processed meats or sugary snacks, which are linked to higher cancer risk. Smoking often triggered by stress is other well-known. Lack of exercise, which often accompanies stress, can contribute to obesity, another risk factor for cancer. While stress by itself does not directly cause cancer, it can create a sustainable long-term impact on the body that facilitates the development and progression of tumors. Stressors, when chronic, may enable cancerous cells to thrive and spread, making it a significant factor in the overall cancer risk. One of the key biological pathways is immune suppression. Cortisol weakens the immune system's ability to identify and destroy abnormal cells, which could become cancerous. Stress also causes prolonged inflammation and disrupts cellular repair, and over time, cortisol can cause DNA damage, increasing the risk of mutations that promote cancer. Moreover, stress is linked to oxidative stress, where excess free radicals damage DNA and cells, creating an environment that supports tumor development and progression. We can see clearly in the picture how the stress levels can evolve and what it can lead into. Conclusion. Cancer is a group of diseases that arise from a genetic mutations in key regulatory genes, leading to uncontrolled cell growth and the potential spread of tumors. These mutations can occur due to both a genetic and inheritance and environmental factors. Cancer progresses in 3 stages. Initiating, where a genetic mutation occurs. Promotion, where the mutated cells begin to grow. And progression, where additional mutations lead to tumor development and possible metastasis. Environmental factors like diet, obesity, and stress significantly impact cancer risk. Diets high in processed meats and added sugars increase cancer's risk, while a diet rich in fiber, fruits, and vegetables, along while with maintaining a healthy weight, can reduce cancer risk over time for life. It is never guaranteed, but it is a big plus and a boost to our health. Obesity is a major risk factor for several cancers due to chronic inflammation, hormonal changes, and metabolic syndrome. It is also linked to poor cancer outcomes, with weight management improving prognosis. Chronic stress also increases cancer risk by impairing immune functions, promoting inflammation, and causing DNA damage through the constant release of stress hormones like cortisol. Together with stress-induced unhealthy behaviors, such as poor diet and lack of exercise, chronic stress creates an environment that facilitates cancer development and progression. These are our resources we use to gather all the information that was stated in our slides. You can see the author and the link if you would like additional information. These will be the rest of the resources, the continuous. Thank you.